Hello and welcome to the Teach Music 21C podcast series. I'm Merlin Thompson, the creator and founder of Teach Music 21C, a community of music teachers where we believe the best way to create musical success is for teachers and students to build it together. And I'm joined today by Paul McGlinchey from our executive team. Paul, thanks for joining in.
Hello there, Merlin. It's great to see you again.
Absolutely. And, we've got some interesting things to talk about. But why don't I pass it to you to give us an introduction as to where we might go this morning?
Yeah, one of the big topics, the big introductions that you have to us in teaching music for the 21st century is how times have changed. And I'm wondering if you might give us a little bit about in what ways you see that times have changed in music education.
Yeah, so that's it's a really interesting discussion because if we just look simply at the relationship between teachers and students, and maybe I'll talk about my own childhood for a minute. So that's some 50, 60 years ago. My childhood, the teacher-student relationship was one of teachers told students what to do and students did it. That's all there was to it. And
Yep.
so if we look to what's going on today, it's less of this one-way street of kind of interaction and more of a two-way kind of communication and interaction that's involved, where teachers and students both have things to contribute. And that's not to say that teachers and students contribute the same things, because they don't. Teachers come from a background with lots of expertise and knowledge. Students come from emerging expertise and knowledge. So that for me is a really great place to start off, just with the interaction between teachers and students.
So how does that show up though in the music lessons? That change in that interaction.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to my beginning years of teaching. The student arrived for teaching, and if I go, yeah, 40 years ago, uh, go back to the beginning. My student arrived for a lesson, and I opened their book. I saw my notes, and I went, "Oh, we should check this," and I went through the order with them. Basically, I did most of the talking. These days, yeah, student comes in, I open the book, but I turn to the student and I say something like, "So, what was the hardest thing you were working on last week? Or what was the easiest thing to work on week? Or what do you need from me?" So right away, I'm putting it over in their camp.
Yes, I that reminds me that one of the things that the teachers here in the community are always interested in finding out more about, and even some specific examples of it, are those phrases, those things that you say and questions that you ask that engage students. Could you give us some examples of those?
Yeah, well, I just talked about what's the hardest thing you're working on, what's the easiest thing going. For me, it's what do you need help from me? What
Mm.
can I do to help out? Where are you feeling everything's going okay? And what I get from students is that because we start students as beginners, they may not have vocabulary to accurately express what's going on. So teachers have a multi-layered responsibility in interacting with students. Part of it is that we need to sow the seeds of that vocabulary that we're going to use to talk about music. And then the other one is to open up the conversation, to hear what students have to say, to hear what my student Angie says when she's, shows up and says, "Oh, Dr. Thompson, my brain exploded earlier today, so I don't know how much I'm going to get done at today's lesson." And I'm thinking, that's a really great bit of information for me to have, because without that, I could be going down a whole other journey that is impossible for Angie to relate to.
That's a great example. And it shows how, you know, that to create an atmosphere of for the student to be able to say things like that. I mean, I can imagine myself when I was a student in high school or college that, I'm not sure that I would have felt safe saying something like that. Not that I didn't trust my teachers, but still, how do you, from the very beginning, I'm imagining this is a relationship that you need to build. How do you build that kind of trust and safety, so that student feels they are okay, just letting you know that their head is exploding.
Well, and it's pretty straightforward, and it is really what we're equipped to do as human beings. We're equipped with the skill set to help other people feel comfortable with us. And I always bring it back to let's talk about the first date. So you're sitting across the table from someone you want to spend time with.
Right.
And you have to find a way to talk about things that are going to engage that person. You want to find out about them, you want them to find out about you, but you want them to know that, oh yeah, this is going to be the relationship that you will not want to miss out on.
Right.
So for me, it's a bit like that. And because teaching has this unequal relationship. Teaching
Yes.
has a teacher and a student, and we don't see them necessarily on the same layer or the same level. Whereas with the first date, we think, yeah, I am on the same level as this, or if I'm not, I want to be on the same level as this person. So it is that whole notion that our understanding of how to create relationships is something that we know about already. And how do we find out about it? Well, we find out about by saying the wrong things and by saying the right things. Like
Mm,
there was the first date where I said da da da.
mm,
We shouldn't have talked about that on the first date. I should have saved that for like year 3 or something like that. So it is that kind of thing, and it is for me really interesting. If I think back, even to an example, I was talking with a teacher several months ago,
mm.
and her first conversation with parents was such that no matter what parents had to say, she ended up dominating the conversation. And I
Yeah.
asked her, well, how did that turn out for you? She said, well, parents never sign up for lessons. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, that's a sign for you that
Mhm.
those conversations aren't working for you. So, what kind of conversation would work with you?
Yeah.
I'm going to say we know what those conversations need to look like. And we can find out by making mistakes and just saying, okay, that's something I won't mention the next time. But we have this innate ability as human beings to create really strong, trusting, and safe relationships.
Yeah. One of the things I'm really hearing from this conversation is that uh, one of the major significant ways that things are different is that there's less of that hierarchy, like you were saying, between the teacher and the student. It's more just like we would be with another human being,
Yeah.
with another person. And how do we create a safe atmosphere for them, and also for ourselves to feel safe to be who we really are, rather than hiding behind the facade of the teacher.
You got it. Yeah. And there's a wonderful book by a man named Carl Rogers. No, I won't say a man, by a psychotherapist named Carl Rogers. Wrote in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. The book is called Freedom to Learn. His whole thing, his whole approach to psychotherapy was that the client always had the solutions to their situation embedded somewhere within their persona.
Right.
And his job as the psychotherapist was to be the facilitator, the guide, the person who was going to bring those conversations into place so that they could see themselves more clearly. And in the process, he talks a lot about himself, the psychotherapist's role, as being really true to themselves as well. So not showing up with the facade as, yeah, I'm the knowledgeable psychotherapist here. I'm going to help you get, to whatever situation you want. No, here's an ordinary person who's loving, compassionate, understanding, impatient, all
Mhm.
the rest of those things, that we can add in. We just don't need to have all the lovely characteristics that we might want people to see in us. We can have the vulnerability as well. And I think, being that real person is what we're looking for today. We're looking for real relationships, not fake
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah, and what you said about from the psychotherapist, saying that the client has the solution inside of themselves, that reminded me of a conversation we were having in the community yesterday, where one of the other teachers reminded us that music is already inside of us.
Right.
So the teacher is there to help evoke that. Like that, I think that's the kind of the etymology of the word education, to bring forth from within. That to me sounds like something relatively new in music education. Perhaps not so new for a lot of teachers, but in the long run, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and we can get overly focused on getting the music to be done.
Right.
Getting the technique learned, getting the scales done, getting the circle of fifths understood, getting the beat and rhythm, all that figured out, knowing how to play Trolls and Mozart, knowing how to interpret Chopin. We can get overly focused on all those kinds of things.
As important as those things are, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. That we lose sight of the person.
Right.
And when we lose sight of the and we can get so focused on the person that we lose sight of the music as well.
Right.
So, this is where we're at today. Teaching is really multi-layered. I think previous generations thought teaching was only doing this certain layer. Now we understand, well, it is that layer, plus it is the personal layer, plus it is communication, plus all these other things as well. And it's not to be daunting. It's not to be, oh my goodness, there's so much I have to learn about. All of those things are basically, we have all those things just waiting. Either we are exploring them already, or they're waiting for us to explore for ourselves.
Yeah, right. And I think one of the ways we can tend to look at it as a balance between those two elements, the personal and the technically musical. But I think maybe, at least the way I see it, is more of a flow back and forth, in and out, things like that, rather than always trying to keep some kind of stasis.
Right. Yeah. I use interweaving is what I go. So they're all woven together. We can't explore musicality without exploring personality. We can't explore personality without exploring vulnerability and strengths. So all those things are woven together.
Yeah. Oh, that's just wonderful.
So here we have it, Paul. We've had a wonderful discussion today, all brought about by this notion that times have changed. Teachers today need to look different from our predecessors. We need to look more like real people, people who care about our students. And that's not to say previous generations haven't cared, but the interactions and how we're going to communicate that caring, safe, trusting environment. That's the fun part of teaching today.
Indeed, it is.
So I'm Merlin Thompson. I've been here with Paul McGlinchey. This is the Teach Music 21C podcast series. Thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll hope to see you next time. Bye for now.